Hey guys, sorry we're a little bit late today. We had a few technical issues, but we're here now.
That's probably a bit better.
Jeff, are you in? Yes.
Yes, mate. Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Right. I'm just going to pass it over to you briefly.
Yep. Happy
And
days.
I'll be back in two shakes, mate. Yeah. Can you take this? You can take the screen, can't you?
I can.
Cool.
Just about to do that. All right. Happy days again, and should be able to.
There's not a lot to see on the FTSE, to be fair, so we're not missing out. We'd
No.
probably be short, probably, but we'll talk about the mess of the FTSE in a minute.
Righto, cool. So I've got a couple of. Well, I've got an order in the market at the moment. I'll share that with you. It is pretty much against my bias, actually. My bias is short euro. However, I see a potential long here euro pound, and I've been a euro pound bear for ages. So it's a little bit, as I say, counter my bias, but here goes. I've put an entry above this swing here at 0.8857, and I've put my stops below what really I can't describe as a swing, but potentially it is a higher low. If that remains the case, then I'll keep the order in place. If it doesn't remain the case, and this low gets taken out, then I'll change my mind on this one and look for a better entry at some other stage. Stop loss is 44 pips, or you could have a tighter stop loss, depending on where this. I'm on the 4-hour chart, by the way. Depending on where this candle closes, you could put your stop underneath there if you wanted. And I would find that acceptable. Far more risk, of course, but if we can't break through this broken trend line, then I would suggest that we'll probably be going north before we head back south. But that's again yet to be seen. I think where my stop is probably as safe as it can be in this particular instance. So that's euro pound. Basis of the trade is very much it's a bit of a speculator, to be fair, but it is something that I do like to trade when we've put in I'll call it a reversal bar, followed by, and this is very, very obscure as a higher low, but it's there. And for that reason, when we break a weekly pivot after a higher low and then come back and re-break it, I think one of two things is going to happen. If the bears have rebroken this for a reason and they're actually truly in charge, they're going to take on this low again. If they're not, and these guys are in charge that made the initial break and broke the weekly pivot, then we should see a little bit of acceleration through this level and go on to a resistance level. That resistance level for me is around about this level here, 88.92, which is where I've got my first take profit area, and I'll remove a third of the trade at that point. If this does reverse, I think the second point of exit's probably another 70 odd pips to the good up at this level here. So the top of this range that we went into prior to the second last dive, I'll call it a dive. And then I'm happy to let this run. You could consider, of course, if this goes up to the 91.30 or 20 odd area, that would be reasonable point to exit, one would think, up here. A lot of work to do, of course, before we get into that particular area. But if I have a look at the bigger picture here, we have come to an area where you would expect a bounce, and that is this former resistance. And twice resistance broken. Now we're back there. So you would expect that to bounce. Not convincingly at this point on the weekly chart, that's for sure. And as I say, if the bears are truly in charge, we'll see the disappear and we won't get taken into the trade. So that is the basis of the trade on euro pound. Now, those of you who were in last week should be in Aussie yen short at this point, because I did say, and said it quite a few times, that if I got taken out with my trailing stop, which is exactly what happened. Oh, let me go to the chart. If I got taken out with my trailing stop, then I would look to re-enter after the retracement. Now, this is exactly what has happened. We got taken out. It was about here somewhere. I can't quite recall. Let me see. Yeah, we got taken out. Good question. Wasn't on Friday, or was it on Friday? I got back in on Friday. Maybe I got taken out on Thursday. I'll have to go and check that on my account, but I can't remember. In any case, my counsel was to get back into this trade. Oh, that's right. It's all coming back to me now. I re-entered here at the break of the candle that we got taken out here. That's right. Okay, all good. So we re-entered here below this bar, and as you can see, everything went well to this point. We've had a retracement on that at the moment. I've still got my stops up here around about the 73, whatever that level is. 73.55 mark. I will consider moving this today. I think either maybe down to here and therefore reduce my exposure on this. I may even take profit here. I think that's probably a reasonable thing to do as well. So I might lock in what we've got in the bank already, and make sure that we can walk out of this with a profit. I'm not that convinced that that we're going lower until we come back to the weekly pivot. That's the reason for this. And if we do that, then I should be able to find another entry on this and scale back into it. So we placed 4 trades short on this already. So we're going very, very well on Aussie yen. And if we can break through this low again today, I will take a sizable chunk off at the monthly pivot, because that's definitely a place where I think price could bounce. In terms of today, if you're not in that trade, there will be an opportunity, I believe, to trade it. If we get a break and retest of this trend line and retesting the confluence with the daily pivot, I think that's probably a good place to go short. The place to go long here is exactly where the break of this trade line is. So above this bar that we currently, that closed about 9 minutes ago. So if you're inclined to trade this retracement further than it's already gone, there would be a far worse place to enter than here. I'll explain why I think that's possible. Yeah, you could probably put your stop under here around about 19 pips, and you've got about 1.5 to 1 up to the weekly pivot. I think that's a reasonable position to take if you are so inclined. I'm considering that myself, as a matter of fact, pretty much as a hedge. Let me just have a little measure here. Thing I don't want to do is trade straight back into resistance, of course. Yeah, it's not great, is it? There's just enough room there to take a little bit of profit off the table. I'm going to let it go. And again, what I said, I may take profit at this level. So I'm going to mark that spot. There is a support and resistance area in here somewhere. It's a little bit of a band, I know, but I think 73.07 might be a reasonable place. If we go through 73, and you can see 73 has been rejected already today. Kuroda spoke earlier and drove it up to that mark, but it's come straight back to the daily pivot. Maybe we're in for a little bit more consolidation, but as I say, maybe that retracement could go to the weekly pivot, and there would be far worse entries than there. But gee, you've got to take profit fairly quickly. You don't want to be trading through that level there, in my humble opinion, without taking something off the table. Buy short the euro, but gee whiz, it's tough. It really is tough. There's a double bottom sitting here that's very, very clear, and what is a clear swing, or clear potential swing area. But do you really want to trade long here on these bars? Is my question.
What would that be? What would that be a clear swing area for you, Jeff? Long?
Oh, because it's already swing.
Because it held.
Yeah, it's already a swing. So we've had a price that couldn't go through that level.
Yeah.
At that point. So obvious thing for me is to go to the resistance level and try again.
Yeah. So
that's why I'm of the opinion that I'm very, very confused here.
Yeah.
So if it's a higher swing, but is it a higher low? Technically, it is. But is it a reverse? Is it a place you want to trade from for that very reason that you've just mentioned? Why? What is it bouncing off? What level? What level are we talking about here? It's just a level that price decided to halt at, from what I can see.
Funny one, isn't it?
I don't see anything even on. Well, maybe there's a little bit of an area here that we closed on, but certainly the low is in a very weird spot. But again, I looked at this today on this morning show and thought, oh, if that was a reversal bar, I think I'd be willing to take that or a low test bar probably rather than a reversal bar, because we're not yet in a reversal situation. If that was a low test bar and I didn't have the weekly pivot in the way, I would have been tempted to trade that candle long. But we've also got the monthly pivot in the way. It's a bugger of a candle. It's not telling us anything. It's a spinning top in a really strategic position, if you like, if it wasn't a spinning top. But it tells me nothing. It doesn't tell me that this is going to be the higher low that I seek to trade long. And it doesn't tell me it's not that either. So I'm pretty much in a confused state as to whether this will or won't go.
I think I've just seen why it bounced there.
You found a level, did you?
I think so. I mean, it's... Yeah, you kind of have to go to the weekly chart and see that... and it's really about... oh, mind you... Yeah, to be honest, there's no way that you would have picked it. There's a 4-hour close. The 4-hour closing price is the same as a weekly closing price from a couple of weeks ago. But
right.
It's a bit of a head scratcher, that one, I've got to say. And I just pulled up a fib on it as well, and it's even below the fib. In actual fact, the fib suggests that this is the place that you go short from.
Well, as I said and have said for what now, is it the 4th week I've been saying it? Yes, this bar here for me is the one because it's broken this very, very long in the tooth, if you like, level, which just refuses to go away, the bottom of this channel, and it's now been broken and retested. So for me, this is on its way down to 107.79 area, which is where I've got that little dotted line.
I have to say, so I think this is a really, really good time to learn to trade in some respects, because if you can survive this period, which is a tough period, there's no two ways about it. I mean, it might be different for you because of the way that you trade, but certainly for trend traders and for someone like me who's really after a catalyst to follow through. It's not that there's not catalysts out there, because they are there, but a catalyst to follow through, then this market is just not providing it at all. So it's a tricky terrain, and if you can survive this period and understand it, then it's a great time to to get into trading in many respects. While there is probably quite extreme confusion. The case in point, really, the euro stops in a kind of open water, and whilst there's all this confusion, it's a good time to kind of go, this is what can happen. This is what can happen in the market. It's just when you think you're on top of it and you've nailed the what you should be looking for, then we just get something which gives us a complete curveball, and that's the period we're in. We'll come to the FTSE later, but the FTSE is exactly the same. It just is caught in a range, and that range is traditionally, these ranges are the toughest points to trade, and I'm well aware of this period being very, very dangerous.
Yeah, it's traditionally not a great time for trading stocks, and the interesting one for me is exactly as you say, because I'm a range trader, and for me this is good fun.
Yeah.
And what I do generally, and I don't generally need to do it, but I do for when I'm demonstrating things, put on my chart when we've got a range, and this range is fairly clear to me. You could even tighten it up to the monthly pivot if you wanted to, and that's probably more pertinent, actually.
Yeah, even that in itself is tough, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but if you get the right signals, then you can get the good trades, and those signals are pretty clear when they come, if they come. And to me, once you've gone into a range, all you're looking for is to trade off the resistance to the support. And the way I do that is by waiting for, the bounce to happen, but then a confirmation of that bounce with a lower high. So I would look to enter at that point and trade to support. Wouldn't have got the bickies here really, but if you're clever enough, you take profit anyway and make yourself safe. But the second time round, look what happens. Bounced off the resistance, gave us a lower high, enter the market. You can enter there or there or there, and away you go, down to the bottom. As soon as you hit the bottom, take your profit. You get a bounce off the bottom. You get an impossible thing to trade here because of
Draghi's interest rate. Yeah,
that's right. And then you come back into the range and look for a lower high. Didn't get it on this occasion. Didn't quite hit the bottom either until here. And you look for a higher low. Didn't get it. Come off the top, look for a lower high. Got it. Trade that. Take some profit. Second time round, just like here. Second time round, we got bearish engulfing bar. You could have traded that if you wanted, but wait for the lower high and bingo, again down to the bottom. So what do you think I'm waiting for here? I'm waiting for a higher low back into this range here. And that's why I said earlier that this is very, very tough on me because I cannot see a higher low that looks good to me. That spinning top on the daily chart is a real, it's a curse where it is.
Yeah.
If I have the higher low, then I've got something to say, all right, let's go.
Sorry, mate, just a quick question on the range a little bit.
Yep.
Do you find, now we all know that the close of the bar is the key price. Do you find that the euro, the Aussie, I suppose specifically, the currencies that you mainly focus on, tend to be easier for your strategy at certain times in the month? And the reason I ask that, if we put a lot of weight on the close, then the last week of each month will probably, by definition, have the most defined movement, which would maybe be trend continuation or maybe a start of a trend. So does that mean the last week is a bit trickier for you, or is that not really something that you've ever really kind of thought about because it's just not there?
Yeah, B. I don't really focus on it. If I see what I see, I generally trade it regardless of those kind of circumstances.
Yeah.
And I think you tend to find that if that is going to be the case and it's going to get tricky, then the way it gets tricky is it just shoots straight through, and you don't get those candles that you're looking for. So generally you're not involved. The market just shoots straight through and disregards exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So I think in general terms, no, I really don't wait the time of the month. That said, generally, again, there's times of the month that are particularly interesting, and next week is a particularly interesting week because it's the first week of the month.
Okay.
And I think that can give you a great springboard if you've got an opinion on the Aussie, for instance, because it's always the first interest rate announcement, first Tuesday of the month. It's not always, but generally that's the case.
Yeah.
If you've got an opinion on that and you've perhaps been ranging leading up to that, perhaps there's been a whisper around the place that interest rates will be cut. Perhaps it's even forecast.
Yeah.
If you can get into, the downside in again off resistance, then happy days. That's what you'd be looking to do. So really, yes, there are times of the month on particular currencies that I'd take more notice than others, but in terms of just no, this day is better than that day, or this week's better than that week, no, I really don't care too much, mate.
Right. Okay.
But maybe I should.
Well, I don't know. I mean, not unless you've.
It's worth a look, isn't it?
Well, if it's something that
gives you a help.
Yeah, if you've noticed it, then yes. But if it's not something that you've noticed, I mean, you've been trading, long enough to not have to note down every single thing that you come across, because some things will just be embedded in your subconscious. From
that's right. You don't think about it, but it's there. Yeah.
So maybe it's not that prevalent. I mean, the FTSE is a different beast. I tend to find, which is why I asked it. But it doesn't mean that the rule always holds. But the last week of the month tends to be my best week because there usually is a pickup in volatility. Doesn't mean it's kicking out of a range. It just means that I've actually got some price movement to judge.
And we're in that week.
And we're in that week. Well, yeah, we are kind of in that week. Yeah, it sort of ends next Monday, which is a bit irritating. But yeah, we are in that week, which is why I'm quite keen on getting a position. I'll show you when you're done what was the position I'd like to take and why. But I am quite keen on getting a position.
Okay, I won't be too long. Actually, there's not a whole lot that I'm super keen on.
Okay.
I don't know. Again, the Aussie's very, very similar to the Euro in that we've got, well, you can call that a double bottom if you want, but only on an hourly chart. Let's go to the 4-hour chart because it's a little bit clearer in terms of unclarity. Unclear. What's the word I'm looking for? Muddy waters. Anyway, this is just a mess. It's a mess right here on the 4-hour chart. But again, you've got a significant double bottom sitting here on the 4-hour chart going back into August. And now you've got a significant higher low at a significant support level. So you've got to be thinking that there's going to be a bounce here of some kind.
Hello, who's that?
And certainly there has been.
Oh, mate, sorry, mate, I'm at work.
But really, there hasn't been too much going on. We've only gone to yesterday's daily pivot and we've tried 1, 2, 3.
Okay, mate, well, I'm at work, so I can't really speak right now.
Time
I can't really speak right now, mate. I'm at work.
That you've had a crack at it.
All right, buddy, I'll speak to you later.
Is that going to be the time that it breaks? Well, that's a good question. Who knows? But at this point in time, we've had 6 attempts on a 4-hour chart and haven't been able to break it. This must have been during Kuroda's speech. I don't know what else there was on today, if anything.
No, I think that was right. Yeah, I think you're right on that.
Yeah, okay. So interesting that we get a candle like that on the Aussie US dollar on Kuroda's speech, but there you go. That's the way it is. We're having another crack at this level, obviously, which is as at this point holding, and I hope it does for the Aussie yen trade. But the Aussie yen itself, that we have already had a look at, as I said, is in a particularly interesting position where it could go this way and it could go that way. Am I sounding like a broken record? I probably am, because I'm not really having a clear picture of which way we're headed next. Cable is one of those, and I've been a massive bull cable for quite some time. but I see three little Indians sitting here that are telling me that this has got a little bit of downside. There's one, there's two, there's three. And when I generally when I see that topping a range, which I will put in place. So the range is probably in there somewhere. That that to me is fairly clear. And these three little Indians, that really is the top of the range, I suppose. So it hasn't broken it. And this one's the first break. I guess there's the second and or third, however you want to count it. But again, we've come back inside the range. We didn't put in a significant lower high, and that would have been nice off the top here and tradable off the top had that occurred, because it would have been a lower high than this one. But, you know, when I see that pattern, generally it takes longer to form, and that's my one concern with this. And it doesn't hang around too long. It just goes whoosh and straight through. Maybe there is another rally here, I'm not sure. But I'll certainly be looking for any opportunity to trade this off resistance through this level, if I can possibly do that. That resistance on an intraday chart or an hourly 30-minute chart, something like that, may well come off the daily pivot. My preference would be for it to go back to retest either the bottom of this previous very small range or the weekly pivot, and then look to trade it short. I think that's where I'm at. Tough to say we've really got a lower low here, but technically we have, if you count that as the low. We've got a lower low, so we're really looking for a lower high at this point. And if we get that, then I think short is the way to go. Two trades I wanted to take this morning. One was euro pound short, but the other one is euro yen short. And I said this morning to the guys that this is a very, very strong signal for me. Break monthly pivot and trend line or trade line, and then retest or re-break both of them. Generally, that sets up as an ABC trade, and there's a very, very big gap under here. There's probably a bit of support through that level, but there's plenty to like about this particular position. The one thing that haunts me here is that we're trading at a very strong support level. So you're asking price to go straight through there. Well, for the second time, third time, fourth time, it's had a few cracks at this and can't yet do so. What makes me think that this will be any different? Well, I can't answer that question. I really don't know. But what I do see when I see these things happen is generally I can get an indication that it's going to happen soon. It doesn't mean today, doesn't mean tomorrow, but I think we will lose this level and we'll come through it at some stage. So I'll be looking to trade that, but I don't want to trade it from here. I want to trade it from up here somewhere. And again, the best place for me to trade this from would be in the vicinity of weekly pivot. May be able to find a trade here on the shorter time frames, but if that were to be the case, I think I'd go in here fairly light, still expecting price maybe to go back up to here. So that's kind of what I'm looking at here. You can see a big bullish engulfing bar here. Again, you can't see a significant, or what I call a significant higher low, because I really look for a rally, then a retrace off the rally, which fails to take out the previous low. That for me is the signal to go long. Not here. It's too messy. You know, price is not telling me anything. It's not telling me it's ready to go. But if it came down to here and found this support level where there's a confluence area, then different story. That's where I want to trade this long from. I'm not committed to a bullish stance, far from it, but I can definitely see room for this to retrace further, and that's why I'm still open to that suggestion. But I don't want to trade it long from here, and I don't want to trade it short from here, and that's why I'm seeking that long to go. Maybe to this level, but weekly pivot would be the best. So that's about where I'm at, mate. I think there's plenty to look at, but looking for retracement on those euro pairs and the pound. Yeah, same. It's all the same. I'm just waiting to hit a resistance level and then trade short pretty much.
Yeah. All right, well, let's think about some drivers today. And First thing is I want a short on the FTSE. Yesterday worked out really well in the end, and it's not always the case, but as everybody knows, I took a trade long here. I got a trade on short to balance out the long. I took my short off the table here, and I took my long off the table pretty much back to where it started. So actually, the money was made on the short in the end. So it worked out really well. There was other plays I could have played. I could have doubled up on the short, after I'd seen which direction it was going in, or I could have gone long again at the low, and made some more money out of that. But it just depends on. Sometimes it depends on your frame of mind. I think what I should have probably done is gone long again at the low, but
tough call though, isn't it?
It is a little bit, because if it really breaks down, then you kind of doubled up.
Yeah, it's a ballsy move.
Yeah, and I don't mind doing it if there's a bit more space between the two prices, because it's really that kind of getting another long in down here is more of a point where I can close the trade at a median price. But it's shallow enough to kind of not need to do that, really, because it's shallow enough to expect it to still come back near this level here, and it came back to the weekly pivot, so it was close enough to kind of like not lose out too much. And as I say, that the short made the money anyway, so it all worked out okay. Now, what happened overnight was we got a gap to the upside, and we are holding this trend line with the weekly pivot. So this is suggesting upside. But what I find quite interesting about this market is that this is a significant move down, another nice sweep to the downside below the monthly pivot. Now, yes, it took me a little while to kind of find out where the line was, and there's a pretty nice line here. So this is our pattern. It looks like a kind of looks like a wedge, looks like a falling wedge, which is does have actually bullish connotations rather than bearish, but it's not a really significantly angled wedge. It's nothing extreme about it. But the fact that we broke down, still within the pattern, but still kind of hit a low down here, and then popped up to the weekly pivot and found on the hourly chart that we had some candles to trade, and yet we've swept that aside, is really just indicative and telling us how difficult this market is going to be to trade, because it's not going to do what we expect. The same thing here. In some respects, to my mind, I think we've got a retest and a closing of the gap. We've got this weekly pivot, and really from this point, we probably should have taken off. We've been meandering around here now for quite some time. This is the second. Well, let's see where we are on the 15. On the 15, we've had 2 bars. So we've got half an hour where nothing's really happened. And it's a bit of a concern, but I'm still thinking of the short. My longer term view is that we are going down. Interestingly, we've had China, the PBOC from China have effectively lifted some of the tariffs on the soybean market for the United States, and they've told some of the purchasers in China that they can go and buy the soybean from the American market without any recourse or any action or any tariffs being imposed on them, so they won't have to pay extra for it. So that's kind of a positive. I'm wondering whether some of the flatness that we've got today is because in 2 hours' time we have got Boris Johnson's Supreme Court decision due. So we should get the results of that Supreme Court at 10:30 UK time. So I wonder whether the market's a bit flat on that. But I've got to be honest, mate. I'm struggling to know what is going to drive it, because just when I think it's going to be driven by something like yesterday's German numbers, for example, which is one of the reasons I didn't take another long there as well, I suppose, is that when it came down, went through the monthly pivot. Yes, there was a last line of hope there, if you like. There was still a chance it could have broken down, because German numbers coming out as negatively as they did is just an extra thing in the catalogue of information we seem to be having about this trade war being so negative. And it's the same with the euro, but it hasn't broken.
Hello, hello. I'm not sure if it's just me or we've lost Ash. Just hang on a sec. I think we've lost Ash, but I could be wrong. I'll just check by contacting him in another fashion. And if we have, I'll just be back in 2 ticks. No, I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Just type yes or no. Sorry, guys. Hopefully we'll restore this in a tick. Okay, yeah, Ash has got a technical issue, so he will not be back. But just reiterating what his thoughts were, he is essentially short biased, longer term short biased, and pretty much sitting on his hands because he doesn't like what he's seeing here in terms of the uncertainty around where price is headed. So he will keep me informed whilst ever I'm on air, which won't be too much longer because I've told you exactly what I'm going to do. And if he's got a trade set up in the meantime, he will share with me and I will share with you. So let's talk summaries, I suppose, for those of you who have just joined us. Okay, Ash is just signing off there. All good. So let's go through it again. Like I said, with Aussie yen, I'm still short, and I'm going to take some profit off the table if price comes back to here, because I think we could be in potential reversal territory. But weekly pivot is the likely place for this to resume its downward trend, and I'm hoping that will be the case. If we don't get up there, of course, there's nothing left to do. Just watch it happen. If you're not short this already, then potentially there is still room to get in. The way I would do that if I wasn't in this trade would be allow this to break, maybe find the weekly pivot and look for a reversal bar or something like that. Maybe a confluence of little trade lines. There might be something come through here a bit later in the day. If we got up to that level and broke it, found resistance, got back underneath that former resistance and tested it, and tested it from below, then we could look to trade it short again. I think that's probably the end of the shorts if we don't see that happen. If price gets up to here, rather, it's likely to then reverse and go the opposite direction. So look for that. If there is a false break here, trade it. If there's no false break and we go back and retest without coming back underneath, then that will be the signal for the bulls. And they wouldn't need too much more than that, I wouldn't think. At this point, we're holding at this resistance level. So I'll just do nothing until that changes. And if it changes to the good side, then I'll do nothing anyway and maintain my position. Reiterating that the euro is a little bit tricky because these candles here are telling us absolutely nothing. I do see the double bottom sitting here at a support level. I do see a higher low sitting here, which suggests to me that there may well be upside. But since then, I really haven't had a candle that is convincing me either way. And I don't, although I see this as a higher low, I don't see it as a tradable opportunity or trading opportunity because of the nature of the beast. You know, we've got a strong bear bar here and very, very little by way of answer. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now a 6th potential inside bar. Doesn't fill me with confidence in either direction. So that is my stance on euro US dollar. Should we take out this low and put in a significant higher low, so still higher than these two bottoms here, that does look like a reversal. I'd want to see it off a reasonable level to be able to trade it. Now that level's a bit tricky. I don't really see it through here. Maybe DS1, you know, it's not the strongest support level that you'd ever find, but it is a support level, and it would give me the indication that if we were to see a reversal bar there, that this can indeed rally. At this point, I'm just not seeing it, guys. So yes, I see the higher low, but I don't see anything that's tradable at the moment on euro dollar. In fact, my short bias on this trade is I guess being a little backed up by the fact that we haven't been able yet to break through today's daily pivot and price hasn't gone anywhere. Again, going back to the news of the day, you could be forgiven for thinking that the market is indeed waiting for something to happen, and that something could well be the business climate coming out of Germany in the not too distant future, about 17 minutes from now. It could also be tomorrow, where we've got Draghi speaking. And of course, that will probably be the time where the market does move big time on the euro, either way. So it's a little bit tricky, I've got to say. But if I see what I've depicted before, then I will look to trade it. Aussie US dollar looks, you know, very, very similar. We've had a double bottom sitting here. We do have a significant higher low here on this one. And also very, very similar. Yesterday's daily pivot has been attempted. Well, prices attempted to break it, not me, because I'm short the other way with Aussie yen. But what I do see here is the failure on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 occasions. We're now attempting it for the 6th time to break back below this low here, which has got a little bit of form back over here as resistance. And if that does go, then definitely I'm looking at weekly pivot as the next port of call. That's also got form over in this area as resistance before, as you can see. And I got this funny feeling we're hanging around here for a bit because we've done so before, have we not? And maybe we're going to go bounce, 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 bounce for a little bit yet until something else happens. That something else could well be what happens in the States with news in the next few days, or it could be the interest rate announcement on the Aussie, which happens 1 week from today. But I've got a sneaking suspicion that we might be just hanging in here for quite a while before we do go too much further. If that further is to happen, I'm hoping it's to the short side because of the short line I'm in on Aussie yen. But you know, hoping never did anything. You've got to see something that really convinces you that that's going to be the case. And I don't. You know, we're in a consolidation period and the market is very, very, well, indecisive, I suppose, is the best word, like these candles. It just doesn't know what it wants to do. So very quickly again, the pound is at support. And if I were to see something happen here, I could get a little bit excited. I'm biased short because we do have what I consider a strengthening argument that this will go short. Why? Resistance here, failed resistance, or resistance that proved good again, but a failed rally again here, and a third failed rally up here, and this one a false break. I consider that to be a strong bearish signal when we get 3 in a row like that, trying to pierce the top here and succeeding not. And I therefore have got a bearish bias, and I think the bottom of this level could go. I hate to trade at the support, however. I'd much rather see price get back up to here, give me a reversal bar at a confluence area, maybe a little trade line slipping through there, and then I can look to trade it short and smash through this level, taking profit at that confluence area, of course, because we've seen it happen 1, 2, 3 times already, where we couldn't break through that support level. Why would I think it won't happen again? I fully give it absolutely every opportunity to do that, but I would like to trade it short and have the opinion that at some stage we will see that level break and see levels down here somewhere around about the 122 mark, 120, 121.50 maybe, monthly pivot. That's where I'll be looking to exit any trade that I do get in, if I do, because essentially I'm still biased long in a bigger world or a bigger picture world. But retracement is something that that we're always looking for, and that's what I'm looking to trade, as a matter of fact, at the moment, back down to this area. So that's the pound. Euro yen, I was also looking at this morning, as I said prior, and I do see a break here of strong support and a retest of that strong support level. That generally, to me, says that at some stage we're going to break this support area, and sometimes I even trade that. But gee, this is a strong level of support in recent times. You know, all through the month of August and September, it's acted as support and resistance, and here we see it again. We're back there, and just going back to my previous statement, what makes me think that this time is going to be the time that we actually break through that level and head off down to 116. Well, I don't know that. I wish I could predict that with some certainty. But the way I tend to look at that is, yes, it's there, the signal's there and waiting for me. So why wouldn't I look to trade it off a rally? Same, isn't it? It's like trading trend. You know, you trade the short the rallies and buy the dips. At this point, I'm looking for the rally to go to a significant level. Maybe that level is here, where we're not too far away from, 118.42 area. The best one for me would be right up here at the weekly pivot. That's where I'd look to trade it, if I possibly could find price in that area. There's an argument on the smaller time frames that you could trade now as a bounce off the daily pivot. Not a huge fan of that, and the reason I'm not a huge fan of that is we've already broken the daily pivot and retested it. So similar to a false break of the daily pivot, which didn't work out, and that's interesting. And again, we've tried a second time, tried a third time. What makes me think this won't break through? Nothing. It's entirely possible that will break and go long up to this area. And if that's the case, that's where I'll be looking to trade. It's also entirely possible, as I said, that this resistance is going to hold, and we find that we do go short here. In fact, I can see a potential setup for that to happen. Maybe off this little area. But I think the better one of those is probably there, where we've got that break and retest of not only the daily pivot, but of a trade line as well. Now, is there room to consider that to be a trade? Well, it looks to be a very small candle to me. About 9 pips. It's not that bad. Your reward is about 12, so 1.25 to 1. It's not the dustiest trade I've ever seen, but you know, when I look at this and see the well, the indecision really, again, going back to that word and the uncertainty in what the market is actually doing, I rather think that I don't really want to be trading there. I don't really want to trade a breakout of that consolidation pattern. I'd much rather it happened, then came back to retest it, then I can look to trade. But you know, whatever we're in this consolidation area, I'd rather think that I'd be trading back into it than out of it, if that makes sense. Because let's face it, most breakouts are false breakouts. So you just let this pan out and then look to trade it. I think it's a bit of a mess, as are most of the charts. So guys, that's probably about where I'm at. Those of you who weren't in earlier, I do have an order long on euro pound, and that hasn't triggered yet. The basis of this one is pretty much as I've just described down the other way. We've got a break and a retest of the weekly pivot in concert with an attack on this resistance trade line. The difference here is subtle, but it's there. And the difference is the real resistance or support area is pretty much exactly where we are right now. As you can see, it's been resistance all through here. It's been support all through here. So I think that is the level that would spook me if I'm looking to trade long. The next level that would spook me if I'm looking to trade long is here. And that's where I've got my first take profit level. So my theory being that we've already broken beyond this resistance level, and that's where my entry will be. So we shouldn't experience more resistance until we get to here. And if that's the case, that's where I'm going to take profit. So the trade is actually trading long above this bar, and stop loss is below that bar. The levels that I'm using are 0.8857 as an entry, with a stop 44 pips below that. Taking first profit at 33 pip mark, or the level on that is 88.90, in fact, 0.8890, where I'll take my first profit. I'll take a third off the table at that point. I won't move my stop at that junction. Maybe I might. Maybe I'll move it underneath this bar, just lock a little bit in, and reduce my risk on the second and third parts of that trade. So that's probably how I'll manage this. If I do get that first take profit, I'll move my stop just underneath the current bar, and see how we go. So that's euro pound long. This is very much against my bias, I've got to say. I've been a bear euro pound for the longest time, but there is potential here for a big gain if this does reverse. And that's why I'm looking at that very, very closely. You can see that we've come back a long way on the second half, if you like, of this massive rally on euro pound. I think that's an excellent place for this to retrace. And that's why I think it's entirely possible that this can go long. Now, if you're a Fibbo fan, you might want to pull a fib on that as well. And when you do, you'll find that we are bang on the 618 level right here. And again, excellent place to bounce, in my humble opinion. So that's why I'm taking that trade. I'm only risking about 0.25% on this. It's not a major play by any stretch, because it is against my bias, and I hate to lose big when I'm trading against my bias. But I think there's an opportunity here, even if it's, you know, just back to a resistance level, which is probably up here somewhere, then look to trade it short again. I'd be happy with that. But I think it's a reasonable position to take on a small stake. So guys, that is it for today. As repeating once again, Ash's, pardon me, bias is short the FTSE. But he's sitting on his hands at the moment, waiting for an opportunity to get in, because he doesn't like price action at the moment. And I can see why. There's tops and tails all over the place here. Makes it very, very difficult to formulate an opinion. And if you're looking to go short, you're trading straight into support here as well. So hang on, guys. Just wait for that one. And if you find that there's an opportunity to trade it short, maybe once you've cleared this area, so break and retest, that would probably get Ash interested, I would think. And the short might be on. So, guys, thanks for your company. We'll do it again tomorrow. Those of you who are slingshot traders, we will be having a slingshot session at 7:45 Singapore tonight. And then, of course, in the morning, and back with this show again tomorrow with Ash back in action, one would hope. So see you then if you can make it, and have a great rest of Tuesday. Bye-bye for now.